Just so delighted that you've joined us today because this summit is everything I've been dreaming about for a long time. It's an opportunity for you as creatives, change agents, community leaders, and just interested citizens to find out about the intersection of arts and social change, how through the arts we can open up hearts and minds and initiate new conversations. And today I'm so delighted and happy to have with us Michael Skinner. He is a nationally known award-winning advocate, educator, writer, critically acclaimed singer, songwriter, guitarist, and survivor of horrific child abuse. He addresses the issues of trauma, abuse, and mental health through public speaking, writing, and music. And he has so much more, and I think I'm just going to have him share his life with us instead of me telling you. So welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Now, I'd rather you talk, and I'll just listen.
Oh, I see. Okay. So
I'm kidding.
Okay, because there are a few things we will have to talk about as we go along. So I'd love for people to know a little about who or what inspires you today to do the work you do. And I will say Michael started a nonprofit called Surviving Spirit, and that helps people who are impacted by trauma, abuse, mental health challenges. And so why don't you just talk about what inspired you to do that?
The Surviving Spirit, that came about from my many years in traveling throughout the country and also regionally here in New Hampshire and New England. In my endeavors as a musician, as a public speaker, on the issues of trauma, abuse, and mental health. So I would be asked to present at conferences and perform and at a walk-a-thon or a variety of different activities or events, whether it was to raise funds or raise awareness, again, on those issues of trauma, abuse, and mental health. Some would be specifically for sexual abuse, some would be for mental health, some would be for trauma, some are for all of the above. And what was a common denominator that just inspired me, and still to this day, was in meeting so many folks. Because again, I'm out there as a speaker. I'm sharing parts of my life story, but also my music and how I found hope and healing, and to get my life back. But the amount of people that would come up to me and either share their poetry or show me their art or their own music or whatever creative endeavors, maybe they'd share something they'd written, and it just really all of a sudden it was like all these light bulbs, those epiphanies were going off, saying, my gosh, there's so many creative people out there in the world. And I've always known that as a musician. I know in every little town across this country there's incredible musicians. Just because you don't hear of them doesn't mean they're not out there. They're just as good as anyone on the radio. Well, this got me to thinking, because these are all folks who were impacted severely, mentally, physically, spiritually, socially, by the trauma and abuse and the mental health concerns in their lives. So I thought, wow, what better way to try to share that there's people out there to give some hope that maybe they don't have to sell 1 million records or have their art displayed somewhere, but to just show that they're out there doing good things. And it's a creative way to heal and to just show hope that we're not just, marginalized, sitting in our bedrooms, sitting by ourselves. So it was meeting all these creative folks and also advocates, people just out there doing things. So that inspired me to first start the newsletter that I would send out, sharing about these folks. And then it was the idea, okay, let's start a nonprofit, but with the website, and to be able to showcase their creative endeavors and just to share that, to just show that there is hope out there, that no matter what life has thrown at you, one way or the other, you can find some hope again and some healing and some help. So that's where that
Let's talk about the process a little bit about starting a nonprofit. What were some of the challenges for you? What were some of the successes? Where do you see yourself going with this?
The challenges was very hard. One, finding a board of directors to work with me that got the vision about this. Two, to actually establish the nonprofit. I'm not a wealthy person. I didn't have funds to draw upon to just pay an attorney, so I'm pretty good with paperwork and legal things. So I actually did the IRS paperwork of to do that and submitted that and was approved as a nonprofit. And we did start with a really good board of directors, all creative folks, wonderful advocates in their own right. And we started this vision, and then we built
Did
a website.
Did you write out the vision? I'm just trying, because people are always asking me, well, how do I start something like this? So did you have a written vision with a mission statement, all that kind of stuff, or were you just able to share it verbally with people?
No, there was a mission, and then it was fine-tuned because, again, this was my idea to begin with, but I'm well aware if I'm asking folks to sit on the board of directors, I did not want this to be the Mike Skinner story. I wanted this to be about the surviving spirit. So the mission idea of sharing about the creative arts and that we can heal, that was the biggest thing, whether it's trauma, abuse, or mental health. I wanted to address all of those issues. So that was key. I did not want to just be pigeonholed into, well, this is an organization for survivors of sexual abuse or physical abuse, neglect, or schizophrenia. I wanted it to cover all of the aspects of any of life's traumas, whatever they may be, so that it was inclusive to everyone, not exclusive. So
I love that. I think that's a really important point today, to be inclusive. And I know from my own advocacy, there was a new group that started in Chicago, and it was about sexual sex trafficking. And I said, you can't ignore it. It is abuse across a lifeline, and they aren't different. So it's that same idea that people suffer from a variety of issues, and yet we people want to pigeonhole it because also, that's the buzzword today, so we can get money for that. But it is not. I don't believe that either. That it's not an exclusive thing. It's inclusive, and there's a continuum.
You're right. So if you think of folks that are dealing with, different, I don't like the word disabilities, but that is the reality. So folks dealing with struggles and things, they are being abused, whether it's emotionally, physically, or sexually. So there is a common denominator, So we're all somehow connected by the respective traumas in our life. So how to get folks a team, and we did have a team because I come from music. I always loved when I was in a band where 3 or 4 or 5 individuals are working together as a team. You go a lot farther than if you do just as a one-person show. So that's always been a driving force for me, and I learned that as a young teenager playing in bands, that if you have 4 people working together, you're going to overcome a lot more obstacles than trying to do it yourself.
I love it. I think that's important, the collaborative piece, partnerships, things like that. Because I know a lot of artists who sort of just work at home by themselves. And so, it's like, we need a tribe of people. We need that support. We need to put ourselves in containers of support as well, because we need people who are going to say, hey, that's a great idea, or maybe we need to tweak this, or maybe this would be a better approach. And I think we need to set up the parameters of team building within this structure of being creative.
Mm-hmm. Right, and it's a process, and there's always learning to this, and we all have our visions and our ideas and our own little egos, and I have my stuff. I know that, but at the end of the day, I want to sit back. If I'm working with folks, I want to listen to what they have to say, and I have to learn to compromise, And so the surviving spirit, it was a teamwork, so it took us a long time to create the website because there was several of us, let's do this and let's do that. And I felt bad for the poor web person putting it together because you had all these creative people with all these ideas. And it's like, okay, let's be practical. How much money do we really have here? So we started with that, and again, the newsletter. And I send out the newsletter. I pretty religiously send that out monthly. We then created a web store so that we could sell people's things, their creative endeavors, and also to show resources. Say if someone wrote a book. Now, when you talk about the obstacles or the pitfalls, one of the things that this saddened me was all of us went into this, really excited. Okay, let's put up this web store, and everyone's just going to see, oh, here's this great book, here's some music, here's some art, we're going to support this, or maybe they made a quilt, or what anything that could be made by a human being that was the thing. Were you a surviving spirit? Had something gone on in your life that had set you back, and somehow you're rebuilding your life? That was all that was the only criteria, and that was it. We were able to sell items from the web store. I was able to sell more items, the creative works, when I would be at a conference and just have the table, the point of purchase sales. But it never really took off the way we envisioned it. So in the last couple of years, I'll be honest with you, we had to scale that back with the web store and how much we're promoting and different things, because we just were not generating the sales and the books and the different things, and it's a lot of work for that. So the Surviving Spirit now is really morphed into a clearinghouse of resources. So the website still has a lot of resources. We still send out the newsletter, and there's actually work being done on the website behind the scenes. It's being rebuilt to forward that new vision and mission, if you will. So we're not going away, but it's just, there's been a little bit of a change. So that was a little disappointing. We also have a speakers bureau. I still, every now and then, if someone wants to book a speaker, I can do that, but it just didn't work out the way we would have liked to. But, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Right. Well, that is great, because I know this will be so helpful to other people, things to consider, to think about as they go forward. So is there anything else, just talking about this and your website, that you would like to add that somebody might want to know that you think is important? And then we're going to talk about your own personal process.
Well, again, they can visit the website, and keep in mind it's a work in progress, but at the same time, there's a lot of resources there for hope, healing, and help around the issues of trauma, abuse, and mental health. We also have a whole section on grieving, how to, healing from that. The resources, and then the newsletters, most of them are archived. If you open up one of the newsletters, there's anywhere from 16 to 20 different resources in each one of those. So they're a great resource for that, again, for offering hope, healing, and help. So whether it's from those of us with the lived experience, or is it from the professional? Again, the bottom line is it's sharing something that is going to inspire and, to help motivate us one way or the other in our healing process. The other thing is my own website. I'm it's not being egotistical, but, listening to my music.
Well, give people the name of your website so they can go there.
All right. It's very simple. It's mskinnermusic.com. And if you just Google Michael Skinner, advocate, musician, usually I'll come up. There is another Michael Skinner out there as a musician, but if you put in advocate for mental health or trauma, then I'll come up. But again, I have blog posts, there's resources there. There's a whole section of resources on fellow survivors of life and what they do creatively. And there's some incredible, artwork, books, etc. So again, just trying to show, because the creative process is huge. And one of the things, if there's a takeaway from this, you don't have to be a famous musician or a famous artist. Just do your art, whatever that may be, for yourself, your creative work. Because that's one of the things that has saddened me, Ray, in my learning curve here since 1993 on this. How many people are creative? I believe everyone is creative. But if you've been struggling in life, whatever the issue may be, what's one of the first things to go? Are the things that we love to do. So that's part of what this is about, is to gently encourage you to go back to that. Is it drawing? Is it writing? Is it gardening? Is it cooking, quilting, whatever it may be, sewing? All those things are important. So that's part of also the grand vision, if you will.
Well, we're very much on the same page, because I am offering a 16-week program called Finding Your Creative Voice, because I do believe that creativity. When we tap into that piece of ourselves, and we go back to our imagination, our observation, our curiosity, we change who we are, and we can transform ourselves and then transform the world as well. I'd like to talk about art and healing and how you found that was helpful for you. Did you just do it automatically? Did somebody suggest it to you? Let's talk about your healing process yourself a little bit.
Okay. Well, I'm 62, so I've been playing the guitar and singing since the mid-'90s. But I started at the age of 10 as a drummer. But back then, I did not realize that my drumming was actually a healing thing for me. I just loved drumming, and I wanted to be in the rock and roll band like everybody else because I saw, the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. What I learned later in life, I didn't know it at the time. I just loved drumming, and I'm playing in a band. I'm getting to play out people. I'm being paid to do something I love. But years later, when I'm reading, the studies, the research and all the different things, how drumming in of itself was healing, what that was doing for me on so many levels inside of me, and to help heal the trauma and the abuse I had to deal with. So that left-right brain connection, the back and forth, and using all four of my both legs and my arms, using all of that in drumming. So that was healing. I did not know that at the time, but I think intrinsically we know what is going to help us. So drumming, and then starting to sing and writing songs. So I got to tour Great Britain for a couple years back in the mid-'70s, and I started writing songs over there, and I was able to get out some really deep, heartfelt emotions on what had gone on in my life. So that was healing. But did I know back then at 21 years old that's not what I was doing? No. In hindsight, I can look back and say, wow. So, I guess listen to that inner voice. If something's compelling you to do something creatively, I think follow that muse. So, but when in 1993, when I call it the breakthrough, when the post-traumatic stress hit, and I was consumed with flashbacks nonstop. I couldn't do things, but I knew I had to get back to music. So slowly but surely, I did. And then this one I said I really want to pursue playing the guitar. I always wanted to play the guitar. I picked up the guitar in the middle of a deep depression, and as I said, overwhelmed by the flashbacks and the dissociation going on back then. And it was a process, but it definitely helped me to heal. But it wasn't overnight, Ray. It was not overnight, because I can sit down to a perfectly tuned guitar back then, strum a C chord, but when I was in a funk and just feeling horrible, that C chord just sounded like a bunch of noise.
I understand that. I went through it, but I used drawing and scribbles and doodles and then painting, so it was a different modality. But I know for me, and I think this is really important, that it is a process, and you don't have to be perfect at it. You can play at it. You can, at least when I was scribbling, it was like, just get the paint out. I needed to find another way. Words weren't working. I've been in talk therapy for a very long time, and I just couldn't figure out a way to get it out of my body, and so that was one of the pieces. I took a full day workshop on dance, just to move and again try and do different things. The music part has never been part of my thing, but I love music. But I like to move. But everybody's got something different, and it evolved over time, and I could see my process of healing as I went through it, looking at my art when it was scribbles and doodles and it was pain and it was dark and it was like, horrible. And then the images were all in black and white and gray and these, the sadness. But then as I worked through it, my colors changed, my images changed, how I approach life changed because of the immersion in that other aspect of myself. And I think I was able to tell myself a different story. And I would assume in some way you could do that through the music. When you write lyrics, you're telling a different story to yourself.
What you just said is you're sharing this. There's like this smile of yes, I get it, Ray. I understand. I hear you. Because my songs in the beginning was about the pain and the hurt and the betrayal, and I'm sad because all these things happened. And now I write songs, and the title says it, joy, peace of mind, things like that. So I still acknowledge, some of the darker moments and certain things, but now I'm writing about love and life, you're
writing the story and the life you want to live. I think that's a key. When you're in the midst of the PTSD and you're in the midst of the sorrow, you can't see beyond that. But then I do think that this gives us an opportunity to vision something beyond ourselves. And also, I think the arts give us a way to have those dialogues with people that we can't really have otherwise.
Right.
It's the advocacy piece, too, yeah.
And being kind to yourself and just being where you're at. I'm not the, famous rock and roll musician that I wanted to be when I was a young man, but I'm okay with that. I'm happy with my life. If I sit down and play my guitar in the house, or I sit down at my drum set or a set of congas, I'm okay with that. Because it's fun. It brings me peace. It brings me joy, and it brings healing. By golly, so if that's what I would. Anyone listening to this, please pursue your creativity, no matter what it is. Because I've always wanted to write, so I'm writing a memoir, but that's a work in progress. I'm still learning on that. I have a lot of work to do to get to that, but I'm okay with that. Just like learning to play the guitar or doing the art, you just chip away.
Right. I wanted to be it was going to be Ray, Rembrandt, and Rubens. So I understand at one point I wanted to be famous too. Now I want my art to inspire people. I want to bring them joy. I have these things I created called blessing cards. I want they're actually notes that say, "Oh, I admire how you turn lemons into lemonades." Now I would say chocolate. Right. I would say cocoa beans into rich, delicious chocolate. But in those days, it was those kind of things because I think we need to find different words for ourselves. As somebody who had been, abused, I then abused myself. The words I used on me, I would never say to another human being, and so it's again trying to rewrite that story and saying I would not speak to anybody else that way. So let me talk about how I admire you, what's good about you, those kind of things. So I think that's part of that process too.
And when folks, no matter what we've been through, emotional abuse, neglect, physical abuse, sexual, whatever has gone on in your life, our self-esteem is shot, and how our creativity is also impacted by that. But this is where, again, gently, suggesting to folks, please go back to that, because that is going to help you to heal. That is going to help bring you some joy. And it may not seem like it at the time, but these things are important, because when we're not doing the things that we love to do, we're denying a huge part of ourselves.
I agree, and I also think, I'm talking more about the spiritual part. I didn't talk about the spiritual part in the beginning, yet it has been a big part of my healing. And if we are part of the Creator, we are creators, and so we have that aspect in all of us, and that's part of what I'm talking about now too, is bringing that out. In 1993, I attempted to do this study. I was going to write the first memoir of its type using art, all my stuff that I had written, all my artwork, all that kind of stuff, and I had taken my manuscript to, it was a Body and Soul conference, and talked to the healers and the professional development people of the time, and they all said, "Oh, your story's not enough." And so I ended up coming back, writing a questionnaire. I had 150 documents of people who it was called Surviving to Thriving. And I had all this rich material and stories. And then there came a point where I tried to write the book, and I couldn't, because all those voices kept saying, who are you? Who do you think you are?
Right.
And, you're a fraud. Why would anybody listen to you? That's not true. You need to tell your story at least once, I believe. Anybody who's suffered a trauma, your story matters. What you say matters, because if you have a story of overcoming any kind of challenge, you don't know who's been waiting out in the world to hear it, and it will resonate. The first time I told my personal story, somebody came up to me and said, "You saved my life." And I was like, wow, and it was like, it was a shock, but it was true, because nobody had ever told it the way I had told it, explained it, and we all have those personal stories. And I think you as a songwriter, me as an artist, we are storytellers, and everybody has that ability.
I agree, and it is. It's how we touch people to help encourage them to move on with their life, and then to pay it forward to the next person that they encounter. Right.
Right.
And you're right. Everybody needs to tell this story. I agree.
At least once, because I think the numbers are staggering. They estimate there's 40 million people in the world who've never told a single soul they were sexually abused. think I mean it saddens me because they're not living an authentic life. They're fearful, and I understand that. I went through many years where I never told anybody, and yet what we can do when we share that, we just open up to so many new possibilities and joy in our lives. So and deeper, richer relationships. Because I know what it felt like, because I felt like I was living a lie. I could never share who I really was with people, so it kept me at a distance, and I don't want that for other people.
And what you just said, keeping it a distance, I know that for myself, and finally, breaking the silence and speaking and sharing and healing, I just feel now part of the larger community. So even the simple act of, meeting someone in the store, the checkout counter, I can engage in a conversation with someone. So it's these little things that we feel engaged or part of the community, because we all want to be part of the community. But when you've been hurt in life, a lot of times you don't feel that you're part of the community.
Right. You hold a piece of your heart back. And, and yet people are craving the idea of, they want to be seen, heard, and understood. I'm like you. I can talk to anybody. It used to embarrass my kids. It's like, oh, Mom. But, I could get somebody's life story in 5 minutes because I really care, And if you ask questions, they're open-ended. It's empowering for everybody. I have a little bit of a question about your own personal process in your music, in your writing, even in your book. When you get stuck, what do? What are some tips and tools you would suggest to people when they're stuck in their creativity?
Well, if I'm working on a song and the lyrics aren't coming or the music the way I want, I'll work it for a bit. Then I just say, and I just move on to the next thing. And then I'm surprised I can sit down and write something else that just flows. And then I go back to it. But there's a couple things that I'm actually piecing together now. There was a reason why I didn't finish them, because the lyrics that I thought I wanted to put to the music, because I'm in a better frame of mind, something inside of me was telling me, no, no, no. I just wasn't hearing it, and now I'm putting different lyrics to it. So sometimes maybe we're just stuck. Someone said, I'm trying to remember what they said. When we're stuck, it means we need to talk about the things we don't want to talk about or write about. So I think that's true with our art, whatever that art form. I think sometimes when we're stuck is because we're afraid to share what it is we really want to talk about. For myself, if I'm stuck, I move on to something else. But I say that with a smirk, because sometimes I do keep flailing away at it, thinking I'm going to change it. But then eventually I say, no, I think it's time to move on and try something different, and then come back to it.
Okay. So do you have a definition of creativity for people that you would like to share, and just sort of hone in again on the benefits of creativity?
I'm not sure on a definition, because I think I do believe every one of us are creative. I know people will say, oh, no, I'm not, but if I could spend 5 minutes with you, I would find something in you that's creative. You have a gift or a talent that I don't have. And what was the second part of the question again, please?
Well, the benefits, because you and I are both in this world, and when we say healing benefits, what does that really mean to you?
I think is that it allows the true person to come out, who we are, our true spiritual self, to embrace all of us, our whole self holistically, instead of just that facade of looking like we're okay or whatever. But for me, creatively, it just means embracing every part of me. Even, obviously, I'm a musician, but I feel creative when I'm out in the garden and digging out weeds or planting seeds to see something grow. I feel creative with that. When I cook, I feel creative. So I just feel whole. For me, my creativity makes me the human being that I am and strive to be, and to be a better person.
Oh, I love that. So what is the legacy you'd like to leave?
There is hope, there is healing, and there is help. and to embrace who you truly are, and to give yourself, cut yourself some slack, and don't blame yourself, and to just step forward and try to find a way, whatever that may be, to embrace your creativity and your healing process. Because you deserve it. We all deserve it. I liked what you were saying earlier, because I think a lot of us, we're survivors. A lot of us are victims of crimes and different things we've survived, but the thriving piece, I think we all deserve to thrive, and when we embrace our creativity and the holistic part of us, we can learn to thrive in life, and I think that's huge.
I agree with you. Thank you. And and again, the people, you can find him at MS Skinner. Well, skinnermusic.com. And do you have any final words, Michael?
No. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this. And folks, I'm easy to reach. If you reach out to me, I do respond. Send me an email. I'll write back.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you so much. And everyone, I hope you're taking notes. Michael has so much to offer, and he has lived it, and he has breathed being a creative activist for healing as well as for social change. He's done it all. So reach out to him. He has so much knowledge, and he's willing to share it. Look at the backlog of his archives and his newsletters. There's a wealth of information there. And I hope tonight today you have written some wonderful notes for yourself on art and healing, what you can do. I would say, think about for yourself today, where are you creative? Like you said, let's rediscover that part of you. And it could be the way you design your house, the clothes you wear. It is much more than being an artist. It's the way you think about things and you're a problem solver in your life. Maybe you're helping your kids figure out how to get a scholarship in college. Who knows? We are all creative, and I'd love for you to broaden your definition of creativity. So again, Michael, thank you for being a part of this conversation today.
Thank you, and I agree with you with what you just said. Ditto to that.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, take care.